Okay, so here we are in the Mastermind PBC editor, and we're looking at my button pages here. I'm on the buttons tab of the editor, and this is what I showed you on the device, my gain IA, my nemesis IA, and all of the others, all 8 pages, my presets, my loops, switches, and then from page 9 on it's blank. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and start with a blank page, and I'm going to recreate some of the things that I did here so you can see how I went about doing it. So let's start with page 9. All you need to do to create a button page is just navigate to an empty slot here like I just did and just start working on it. You want to make sure in the Globals tab that you increase the max button page to whatever number of button pages that you have. Out of the box it comes with 3, so when you add one more you'll definitely want to increase this to 4. Personally I just leave it at 16 so that way I don't have to worry about it. Just know that all of those buttons across all your button pages are active. So if you save a setting to a preset and there's some actions on that button that will fire or that will execute, those will happen. So if you have some work in progress pages or test pages or whatever, you may want to make sure that you limit this. In my case, I just keep it at 16 so I don't have to worry about it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to, I like having the IA store button right there. And I'm just going to make life easy on myself, and I'm just going to copy and paste it from another button page. This is from the PBC, the one that came with the PBC. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy that button and paste it right here. So I have got that there. And I'm going to go ahead and put everything on one page here. So I'm going to have 2 overdrives. I'm going to have 2 delay settings, a few different modulation settings, my tap tempo, and all my page navigation. So let's go ahead and do that. For overdrive number 1, so when you're here, when you double click on a button and you get into your button settings page, when you're doing instant access stuff, your go-to selection here is IA. There's other options you can do here, which are kind of preset options that you can select, and they're pretty self-explanatory. I'm going to go ahead and select IA, give it a useful name. So this will be my dyno ranger. And I like the on color to being green and the off color as red. And this is fine. I'm going to come back and talk about this in a second. And all I'm going to do here is open up the audio loop. So I'm going to go ahead and audio loop, loop number 1. What this is here is on value refers to what happens on the PBC. So if I click the button on the PBC to turn it on, I want the loop to go on. And when I click the button on the PBC to turn it off, I want the loop to turn off. So the default settings are fine right there. So that's all there is to opening up an audio loop. My dyno ranger is a special case though because it's a germanium based pedal and it doesn't like having a buffer in front of it. And I have all the buffers in my system enabled by default. So I'm going to want to turn off the buffer when I turn that pedal on. So I'm going to create a new action here and I'm going to go to audio, buffer, select buffer number 1, that's the input buffer, and let me think about how this is going to work. So when I press the button on the PBC to turn the dyno ranger on, right there, I want that buffer to go off, and when I press the button to turn the dyno ranger off on the PBC, I want that buffer to come back on. So that's how I set up my dyno ranger pedal. And that's all there is to it. So now I'm just going to go ahead and hit save, and write changes to device. Bingo, done. So let's do the same thing. I'm going to do another overdrive here in the second position. So let me just copy and paste this here and just make the necessary changes. Here I'm going to do my archer. So let's put the archer here. The colors are fine. I don't need to worry about the buffer with the archer, so I'll just remove that. And then I'll edit this. Instead of loop number 1, the archer is in loop number 6. And I've just created a 2 buttons that access 2 of my favorite overdrives. Okay, let's put a couple delays in here. The Nemesis handles all my delays, and I'm just going to call up some presets on the Nemesis. So for the first one, let's do my all-purpose tape delay. And I'm going to have the on color as being green and the off color as purple. And I'm going to leave this. This is just fine. New action. So now we're talking about the Nemesis, and I'm recalling a preset on the Nemesis itself. So I'm going to send a PC command or a PC message to the Nemesis. So I'm going to select Nemesis from the list and think about what I'm going to do here. So when I push this button on the PBC, I want to recall preset number 1. That is my, I think it's 26 actually. I changed it. The 26 is my tape delay on the Nemesis. When I push the button on, that's going to bring my tape delay on. And when I hit it again, I don't necessarily want it to change to another preset. So I'm just going to go ahead and leave that as none. So it's not going to do anything when I turn the button off. So what that's going to do when I tap that button, it's just going to switch the preset on the Nemesis to preset number 26. I also need to open up the audio loop that the Nemesis is in. So I'm going to go ahead and select audio. And I don't think the order matters here. My Nemesis happens to be in loop 8. So when I push the button on the PBC, I want that loop to come on. And when I push it again to turn it off, I want that loop off. So this is how I set that up. So let's copy and paste this. And let's do my analog delay here. That's the analog engine on the Nemesis. Maybe I should spell it right. Analog. And colors are fine. These are fine. So I'm opening up loop 8. That's great. All I have to do is select the correct preset. So I'm going to select preset 2. And save that to the pedal. I'm going to go ahead and hit Command S and Command G. And now, there we go. That's on the pedal. So let's jump over to the pedal for a second. I didn't give myself a way to navigate to that page, so I'm going to do it here. Let's see. Let's look for something that says go to page. Current page. There we go. And current page, I'm going to make that page 9. Can you see that right there? Page 9. So now I'm loading page 9, and you see exactly what I just did in the editor. I've got my 2. If I click this, look at the display. Dynaраnger. Green light comes on. If I click this, Archer, green light comes on. If I click this, my tape delay comes on. And if I click this, my analog delay comes on. And if I press and hold here, that'll store it to my preset, which is tape room is what's loaded right now. It's a preset. Okay, so this is pretty cool. So far, so good. So I can turn on my Dynaраnger, and I can turn on my Archer also and have them stacked. So I can have both pedals on at the same time. I kind of like that. I can turn on my tape delay. I can also turn on my analog delay, but look what happened with the lights here. These 2 buttons are controlling one pedal, and I'm just switching presets on that single device. So you can't have 2 presets on at the same time. When I click number 3 here, you can see the lights, all 4 lights light up. It loaded up my tape delay. When I click it again, now you can see the lights change to something else, and it loaded up my analog delay. But the light on the tape delay is still on. That's really confusing. It's actually incorrect. This display is lying to me right now. I don't have tape delay and analog delay running at the same time. So how do I fix that? Well, that's what groups are for. So let's go back to the editor, and let's edit these 2 buttons right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put these in a group. I have groups already defined. I think my Nemesis is in group 2, and it is. So let me go back here and put the delays in group 2. As long as they're in the same group, doesn't matter what group you select, any pedals that are in the same group will toggle, or any buttons that are in the same group will toggle back and forth. I'll show you. Let me save that. Transfer it to device. Let's jump back over to the PBC. Now you can see that my analog delay is on, and when I go to tape delay, the analog delay comes off, and when I go back to the analog delay, that light should go off, and it does. So now I'm toggling back and forth. There's another setting in the global tab, or another setting of groups. You'll notice that I was able to push this button again and disable the delay. That's exactly what I wanted. I had already set that up in globals. Let's go back to the editor. So if we look in the globals tab here for my Nemesis delay, I have this button checked, allow all buttons off. Ignore this for a moment, I'll come back to that. So I've named my group Nemesis, and I've checked the button, allow all buttons off. If I have that unchecked, let me go ahead and save that. And let's see what happens to the device when I do this. Okay, so I have my analog delay on. I can switch to my tape delay. I can switch back to they're toggling back and forth just fine. But if I press that again, I can't turn it off. You may want that, and if you do, there you go. One is always on one is always on, but I wanted to be able to actually turn off the delay. So that's why I have this setting right here, allow all buttons off, checked. So let me save that and send that back to the pedal. And go back to my buttons page. Okay, so you may have noticed something else in that group tab. What I've done here to make my life a lot easier, because in my case I had a whole row here plus that one of presets for my my delays. I didn't want to have to type open loop 8 each time that I create a button. So to save myself some typing, since all of these buttons are going to be in group 2, I can create that action on the group itself. So in the global tab for my Nemesis group, you can see that I've already done that. I'm going to go ahead and delete that and do it again so you can see it. New action, audio, loop 8, and that's exactly right. So whenever any button that's part of group 2 is activated, it's going to go ahead and open loop 8. And whenever I deactivate a button that's in group 2, it's going to close loop 8. So that happens, this action happens on the entire group. And since I've done that, I don't have to now define this action on each one of my buttons. All I have to worry about is the difference here. Now, what I'd like to do is like to have my tap tempo over here. I'm going to jump to that real quick. So let me go ahead and do one way of doing tap tempo. So what I'm going to do is going to select IA, flash with tempo, leave all of this blank, give it a name. We'll call it tap tempo. And whatever color you want the button to flash, you can select here. Blue is fine. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then you go into the MIDI tab, and MIDI clock you just set to master. So now the PBC will be master MIDI clock. All of the other MIDI settings on this page are if you want to communicate, if you want another device to control the PBC via MIDI. So you don't have to worry about any of this unless you're doing that. By setting MIDI clock to master and doing this on this button, you'll have a tap tempo button, and it should flash with the tempo of the internal MIDI clock. Let's see if I did that correctly. So I'm going to go ahead and save, transfer, and there it is. It's flashing. And if I can tap it and change the tempo, and if you look at the display, you can see the BPM right there. And this continues to flash at that BPM. Okay, so I want to test now and see if what we did was correct. So when I turn on the Dyna Ranger, we should see loop 1 come on, and we do. And when I turn on the Dyna Ranger, input buffer number 1 should come off at the same time. So 1 should come on here and 1 should turn off there. Let's take a look. It worked. And then when I press it again to turn it off, the input buffer should come back on and the loop 1 should close. And then with number 2, this is my loop 6. The only thing that should happen is loop 6 turns on, and it does. When I turn on one of my delays, loop 8 should come on, and this should go into the proper delay preset. There we go. This went on, and that's that. And then if I click this again, loop 8 should close. And it did. And if I press this, loop 8 should open, and it does, and this switched to a different preset. And if I toggle back and forth, loop 8 will stay open, and this will change. Perfect. Okay, so far we've done that right. Okay, what I want to do is I want to put some modulation right here. Let's go back to the editor. Okay, so I want to leave this top row for navigation, so I only have this one button left, but I want to have access to 2 modulation pedals. There's a couple ways I can do that. I could put a hold function on the button, and so when I tap the button, I get one thing, and when I hold it, I get something else. But that's a little weird with one pedal, because again, the Mobius is one device, and I can't really, with a hold button, you can't really toggle as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a cycle button, IA cycle button here. So I'm going to go to IA mode, and I'm going to click this checkbox that says IA cycle. And it gives you a different tab here. And what happens is, like I showed you with my crude volume control, is you can tap the button and just have it cycle from here to here to here to here and back again. It just keeps cycling around and around and around. I'm only going to define 2 steps. So my first step, well, I'll define 3 steps. My first step will be off, then phaser, and then chorus. And off, I will keep, let's say, black. Phaser, I will do blue, that's fine. And chorus, I will do green. Okay, just so I can distinguish between these things. So I'm going to have the first press will be off, the second press will be phaser, the third press will be chorus, and it'll cycle around among those three. So here's how you do it. First, off. So to turn everything off, I'm just going to close the audio loop. So I'm going to select audio loop number 2, where my Mobius pre is, and I'm going to make sure that when you press that button and you get there, it closes that loop. And I don't need it to do anything when I cycle away from it. So I'm just going to go ahead and set that to none. So that's what's going to do. When I come back to the when I come back to this first step here, it's just going to turn off the loop if it was already on. It's going to make sure the loop was off. Then I'm going to add a step, and it inserts this system step action here. And all that is really a divider. So anything before this step is step 1, and anything after this step is step 2. So let's create our step 2 action. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to open up an audio loop number 2, which is where my Mobius is, and these are fine. And then I'm going to go ahead and select the preset on the Mobius that I want to recall. So I'm going to go to PC, Mobius. When I tap that button, I want preset 0, which is what it is on the Mobius for the phaser. And for this one, I'll just leave it at none. When I cycle away from that, I don't need it to do anything. So now I have step 1, it closes the loop. Step 2, it opens the loop and navigates to my phaser preset. Then I'll add one more step. Here's another divider, a new action. And the loop is already on from the step prior. That's fine. So I'm going to go ahead and not do that. I could do it to be thorough, but I'm not going to. And PC message, Mobius, and this time for when I press the button on, I want my chorus to come in, and that's going to be PC number 1. And when I navigate away from it, I don't care. I don't need it to change presets again because it's going to come back here and close the loop. So now I have 3 steps defined. And I have the labels. Let's get something nice here. Let's call it modulation. And that looks good, I think. Let's save this and send it to the pedal and see if we did this correctly. Okay, so now the buttons look the same. My off state is black. What happens when I press it? Let's look at the display. Phaser. Press it again. Chorus. Press it again. Off. So I'm in the off state right now because the button is not lit up and loop 2 is not open. If I press it again, loop 2 opens and my Mobius went to phaser. If I press it again, loop 2 should stay open and my Mobius went to my chorus. I don't know if you could see that on the camera, but it did. And then if I press it again, loop 2 will close. Perfect. So now I can turn on and off overdrives. I can stack my overdrives. I can choose between 2 different delay settings or have none. And I can choose between 2 different modulation settings using that, and I've got my tap tempo. All right, so to complete this page, I need some navigation up here. I'm going to change directions, and I'm going to go ahead and put a bank up and bank down in this corner. So bank up, and I like to do bank plus for the name. And the minimum and maximum, if they're the same, it'll scroll through every bank you have, but you can also limit it to a particular subset of banks if you want to. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. That's all you need to do to create a bank. Plus, let's do bank minus right here, bank down. Let's call this bank minus. And here, let me check this real quick. What preset? Previous. Oh, okay. That's why I was acting funny. So I'm going to have this go back to my preset 6, or my page number 6, because that's my presets page. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Notice this is a momentary checkbox, and these are unchecked. Again, I'll come back to that. And perfect. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to toss a couple presets in here. And you can see it brought in my preset names automatically. My preset 1 and preset again, and there it is. These are my presets. Preset 1 is dry, preset 2 is tape room. If I bank up, these two are going to toggle. So what I've just created here is a really functional page. This is like a one-page, this is like a button page you could live on if your preset needs aren't that, if you don't need a bunch of presets in front of you, you have instant access to a bunch of things. You've got your tap tempo, and you've got a couple presets that you can access here. You can save any of these combinations here, and then you can, by clicking and holding this button, and if you just tap this button normally, it'll take you out to your regular stuff where you can navigate elsewhere. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save, transfer to, changes to device, and let's see what we get. One more thing I need to do is make sure for my presets that I am using that new button page that I just defined. So I'm going to go ahead and select page 9 here for my first few presets. I actually meant to make a copy of this so I don't screw up my own system, but oh well. So let's do these. There we go. So now on these presets 1 through 6, I'm using this new button page that I've created. So now let me save that and transfer it to the device. Okay, and here's what we get. I'm on my preset number 1. That's the preset I have labeled as dry, and I can turn on and off my Dyno Ranger. I can turn on and off my Archer. I can stack them if I want. I can switch between a couple different delay settings. I can turn them off. I can cycle between a few modulation settings. I can tap my tempo here, and I can select presets. So this is preset 1, and you can see the light is on. I can go to preset 2. I'm on tape room, and I can bank up, and I can go to preset 3. And I can go to preset 4, and I still have all these buttons available to me. And I can go to preset 5 and preset 6, or all the way back down to preset 1 again. And if this is dry, and you can see here for dry, I have no loops open. So let's go ahead and select my Dyno Ranger that opened up loop 1. Let's stack it with the Archer, opened up loop 6. Let's turn on my tape delay, it opens up loop 8. Let's go ahead and select a modulation effect, which opens up loop 2, and I'm going to go ahead and save it. It's stored. Now I'll go to preset 2, and you can see all that has changed. And if I go back to preset 1, all those things that I just did are stored to the preset. That's actually a pretty useful page. And then if I just tap this button, I'll get out to the preset page that I've defined before, which is this one. And from here, I can get to all the rest of my things. The only other thing you need to do is give yourself a way to navigate back to page 9. So you'd have to devote a button on your other pages, either a hold or a regular function button, to get you to page 9. But you saw how we did that. So next, I'm going to go ahead and explain this stuff right here, especially the on preset change, checkboxes, momentary, what those are and how you'd use them. And take the mystery out of that.